What do you mean it's $700 more? Like I have $10,000 exact change and you're saying that you just raised inflation? You're gonna charge me $700 for inflation? Oh my gosh, there's such an uproar right now all around the world because the cost of things are going up because of this thing called inflation. Literally, your money does not go as far as it used to. And so everyone's thinking that inflation is the worst thing. But the truth is, there are 3 ways to leverage inflation for your gain to actually not just make back your lost whatever inflation is, but to actually make a ton more money. Check it out.
One shot, not a future for sure. Let's go. I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, not a future for sure. Let's go.
Oh, hey there, how you doing? I'm doing an object lesson, one that might upset you like inflation upsets some people. I'm just taking $700 and I'm just cutting them up so that I can't use them. Basically, it renders this money unusable, right? And so the $10,000 is now $9,300 because I cut up $700. Why did I do that? Because inflation has dropped the buying power of my dollar by 7% just this year alone. And do you know what's gonna happen year over year over year? Well, in this video, I'm gonna help you understand because if you don't get on the right side of this, inflation is going to eat up your savings that you've worked so hard at. And I'm also gonna talk then about the advantages because inflation is not a bad thing if you're smart, a subscriber, and know what you're doing. So who controls the money supply in your country? Well, it's your centralized government. What they do is if they need more money, they just print more money. Isn't that convenient? One of the reasons that cryptocurrency continues going up in value, but the dollar goes down is because with cryptocurrency, before they even start mining it, they say there's a set amount of it. It's like gold and silver or diamonds on this planet. There is a finite number and eventually we're gonna run out of that resource. And as something becomes more rare, it goes up in value. Turns out though that if the government says over the last 18 months, hey, let's just increase the money supply by 40%. There will be no repercussions to just printing and making money, except there is, and it is called inflation. And if you're not a smart, wise investor after watching today's video, that's on you because otherwise your cookie's gonna crumble hard.
Gave me cookie, got you cookie. You gave me cookie, I got you cookie, man.
So today I wanna talk about the 3 advantages of buying a home during inflation, and I'm talking about real estate specifically because it's not a soft asset like money sitting in the bank or a 401k or IRA or the stock market. All of those are at risk. But when you buy something hard and tangible like a property, the game changes, and I'm gonna show you some data that proves that. Just how bad is inflation? Well, according to Forbes, we had a record year for inflation. The price for goods and services has increased 7% from December 2020 to December 2021, accounting for the highest inflation rate since 1982. And I got news for you. This is just the beginning. I think it's going to keep going up. In fact, we will likely step into double-digit inflation, and it's still going to take another several months or even years before that starts to manifest. But here's what I want you to be thinking. If this year alone, all of my assets, 401ks and IRAs, go down 7%, well, Kris, that sounds really horrible, but it is just 7%, right? No, my friend, if it takes us a decade to pull out of this, what's 7% times 10 years? That is 70%. It's gonna start looking like Venezuela around here when you lose 2/3 the value of your money. I know what you're thinking, we gotta be able to do something about this.
What else can I do?
Hang on, solution is coming, but understand this. We have the prices of things increasing like crazy. Meats, poultry, fish, up 12.5%. So when you go grocery shopping, you actually have a bigger bill when you check out. Fruits and vegetables are up 5%. Electricity, 6.3%. Start yelling at those kids, turn off those lights.
Kill the light.
Furnitures and bedding up 13.8%. Women's dresses 8%. Jewelry and watches 7%. And yet rent of a primary residence, 3.3%. That's interesting, and I'll explain why in just a minute. So let's talk about the 3 advantages of inflation in the game of real estate. And the first one is real assets and what happens to them. It's not even that they're not as affected by inflation, it's that the opposite thing occurs. What goes down in one area, like we just talked about, goes up in another area. Real assets are physical assets that have an intrinsic worth due to their substance and properties. Real assets include precious metals, commodities, natural resources, land, and real estate. Because of the relatively low correlation with financial assets like the stock market, they are good ways to diversify your portfolio to hedge against your inflation. In fact, if you get anything out of today's video, it's that you should move your assets from low yields to high yields. That's how wealth is built. But right now you're doing it for a different reason. I'm losing the value of my money when it sits in this type of account. I need to get it into that type of account. Listen, if you're a subscriber on my channel and you've been watching my videos about the values of real estate, then you know in the last 2 years since the pandemic that in most of the market, real estate has gone up 20 to 30%. Now I want you to think about that for just a minute. While inflation has been hammering 401ks and IRAs and the stock market and just the value of cash in the bank, like the worst place to store your money, what is it doing in real estate? I own properties that have gone up in the last 2 years 30 to 40%. So what's 30% on a $200,000 piece of property? It's $70,000. So on 100 properties, and we're now talking about $7 million. And I own a lot more than 100 pieces of property. Inflation has actually been really good for me because I choose to keep a percentage of my assets in hard, physical, real assets like real estate. Number two, if you own property, your rents are going to increase. On the previous slide, we talked about rents being up 3% plus, but that's nothing. If property values go up 20 or 30%, the rents are going to have to catch up, and that's going to produce in the long term more cash flow. As inflation rises, so do property values, but in turn, so does the amount a landlord can charge for rent. Cash flow also increases as the increased rent now not only covers the mortgage, but it goes directly into your pocket. I always tell people, why would you throw your rent money away anyway? Buy a property and guess what? It over time goes up in value. And then of course you're paying down the mortgage with each payment you make. And then on top of that, it has tax benefits. And if you're renting it to someone else, there's a positive cash flow. So whenever you have strong inflationary times, you want to own as much real estate as you possibly can, not because it's a hedge against inflation, but because it'll make you wealthy. But number three is the one that most people aren't thinking about. The third benefit of having your assets in real estate is that the cost of a loan diminishes as inflation continues and increases. Let's just say for a moment that you borrowed $150,000 from a bank to pay for a house, and then the economy experiences 7% inflation in just 1 year. It becomes much easier to pay your loan back as the money you borrow becomes cheaper. In fact, this 7% inflation would be the equivalent to owing literally $10,500 less than you originally did on the $150,000. But imagine this continues for 5 years. That's $50,000 coming off of the $150,000 rate. In other words, like real estate, you're gonna win. But for the next 5 years, if you got your money sitting in 401ks, IRAs, the stock market, cash sitting in the bank, dude, you're screwed. But let me throw out a word of caution, right? When I say own real estate, I don't just mean any real estate. I mean something very specific, something safe, something that actually makes money in up and down markets. Not all real estate holds its value equally. The best way to invest in real estate is to minimize your risk by buying homes that meet two of my rules. Entry-level single-family homes that are below the median. And the reason why I do this is because guess who needs a home more than anyone else in your country? It's someone that wants to live there, and it's an entry-level startup family. And if you buy it below the median, then while the rest of the market may be appreciating like crazy, there's a risk to that too, because again, what comes up has to correct. It has to come down. I'm not buying an $800,000 property so that when it goes down to $500,000, I'm screwed. I'm buying a $250,000 home, and as the market goes up, it doesn't go up quite as fast, but it holds its value even when the market sometimes goes down. So this is an insulator. So there's a very specific kind of real estate that you want to own, and I actually talk about that in a book that I wrote that I'm here to give you away for free. So when I wrote this book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth, it was meant to be a guidebook to show anyone how to copycat exactly what I did when I became financially free just out of college at the age of 26. I basically house hacked a system for buying 25 homes with next to no money, and those 25 homes gave me a six-figure residual income. And I'm just going to tell you today that not only did that real estate create financial freedom for me, But all of that real estate that I still own in today's highly inflationary market, it has literally printed millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for me. And it's gonna do that year over year over year. And it's not too late to do the exact same thing for you. In fact, I wanna give you this book for free because it is a beautiful guide to showing you how to build wealth starting literally from nothing. And if you'd like to get that, click the link and cover the shipping and handling. Otherwise, my team is just gonna send this out to you and basically spoon feed the 5 steps of how you step into a small amount of real estate that can set you free. Today we talked about the 3 reasons why you want to own real estate in an inflationary market, and based on the next decade, you better get your hands on as much real estate as you can. But for that matter, there's also 3 reasons why you should never pay off your house. Right? I mean, it sounds a little contradictory. Weren't you taught, get out of debt, don't owe that money to the bank, you want to be debt free? And yet debt's my friend. I actually love debt. My debt makes me so much money, but then again, I'm not your average consumer. If you want to understand 3 reasons why you never want to pay off your house, watch this video. What's the video titled? Got it. What do you mean it's $700 more? Like I have $10,000